You can't park that here. Everybody can relax. I found the car. Need some suspension work and shocks and brakes, brake pads, lining, steering box, transmission, rear end. How much? Only $4,800. Maybe new rings, also mufflers, a little wiring. All right, get to the DeLorean and get ourselves back to the future.
Oh, listen, Doc, it's gonna roll the gas tank when it's landed, so we're gonna have to patch it up and get some gas.
You mean we're out of gas?
Yeah, it's no big deal. We got Mr. Fusion, right?
Mr. Fusion powers the time circuits in the flux capacitor. But the internal combustion engine runs on ordinary gasoline and always has. With gasoline, you can't get the DeLorean up to 88 miles per hour.
Welcome to my video on my DeLorean engine rebuild. To put it into context, this is my second time round. My first engine had problems with the soft camshaft and the rockers, so I've replaced those. Don't think the timing was correct. Well, it couldn't have been, because within a few hundred miles the engine blew up and pushed the valves through the pistons and caused a pretty big mess. So this is my second time round now. In November, you can see my little friendly mouse there that was with me all the way through, and decided to get into my DeLorean. Needed a way of getting him out humanely. He seemed to be in there for 3 weeks. So anyway, moving on with the story. The DeLorean itself went to this workshop in November, and the mechanic, as you can see just there, basically my head gasket had failed. So the problem was that the car was getting hot. It was always running hot, and at traffic lights it would just not cool down. It would get warmer and warmer. So then we found out that the exhaust gases were leaking out into the coolant and heating the engine up. So of course this engine had to be completely stripped. Luckily my mechanic let me strip the engine, because I'd done it before, and he put the head gasket on and did all the wet liners, because I didn't want to disturb the wet liners, because that would have been a world of pain that I didn't need. So he was very good at this, taking the heads off without disturbing them, and basically I put all the engine back together again. So this is my little story here. A bit of time lapse, because as you may well know, this didn't take 5 minutes. On TV it all looks really great, everyone does it in 5 minutes, a couple of mechanics, a few hours work, no problem. It's not quite like that, so I thought I'd do a little video on this one. So let's move on. I do know my way around engines, but the DeLorean I know my way around even more now, because I've took it apart so many times. Whether I'm a very unlucky DeLorean owner, because I've spoke to many that have said they've never had a day's problems in their life, but I seem to have a problem every week with this car. There's always a problem. So this is the strip down here, as you can see, got right down to the bare essentials, right down to the pistons. I had the heads skimmed to make sure that we didn't have this problem again. So the pistons themselves weren't in bad condition, and the bores had still got their cross hatching on, so not much wear on the engine at all. And just pointing out here, you do need to change all these little copper washers, and this is a very important thing, getting the alignment right afterwards. So make sure that you don't lose any of the actual washers or spacers on the pulley wheels themselves, because that belt was a couple of mil off before and it jumped off, and it took both belts off. And I was on the motorway at the time, the temperature went high, and I believe this is when my head gasket failure started. So basically this is the fun and games you have. There's just pipes and bits everywhere on this engine. The PRV is very complicated. It seems to have a vacuum, an electrical system and a mechanical system all together that don't actually talk to each other. So you could have a problem on any one of these systems and it would be very hard to diagnose. As you can see, the gauges are on here to check the pressures, and this really has to be done. We put the pressures to factory, but the car did not like it. It would not hardly move with the factory settings, so we had to tweak and tweak. Well, as you can see, my mechanic is working on it there. Had to tweak that smoke. You see was a bit of oil on the exhaust, and to make sure that the actual engine was running as good as it could be. And I didn't find that the timing settings from factory were correct for this car. Of course, it has had mods, so it hasn't got a catalytic converter and it hasn't got the emission control system on anymore. This is basically returned to a Volvo stock engine. So all of those ancillary bits that do the emission control and the idle, they have all been removed. I've done this to actually reduce the problems that I get. So now my car does tick over from cold. Maybe it takes about 20 seconds to settle down, and it will idle there lovely. Still runs slightly warm, but I think this is due to the Back to the Future equipment being on the back deck. So here you can see I'm reinstalling everything after its major rebuild. So it's not a 5-minute job. It definitely takes a bit of work and effort, and what you don't see in this bit is that I've actually marked and labelled every set of nuts and bolts that came off the car, because I wouldn't remember. And there are a lot of nuts and bolts. So here I'm just doing a bit of transmission work as well while we're there. Took the transmission oil out, changed the filter, because this car's also got a problem with reverse. So I've got all forward gears, but I haven't got any reverse. Now it's believed that the actual transmission plates themselves have kind of welded themselves together, so I don't get reverse. I'll get forwards, no reverse. So that's a job that's going to be tackled in August 2024. Anyway, back to this story. So as you can see, I'm trying to get everything back on here, and everything is labelled. All those little pipes and connectors, so everything's documented and labelled, and I've got a nice few boxes by the side of me of parts labelled from 1 to 45. And as I go back and put everything back on, of course, reverse the numbers, so it's easy to put back together. So another problem we found with the car is, well, my mechanic found, was the actual intake system itself had been incorrectly fitted. So it was causing a lot of problems, which we didn't even realise, because you can change all the settings, you can get your pressures right, and if you really want, you can change the mix. You're offsetting the problems that are inherent with the car anyway, so all the intake system had to be redone on this car as well. So it's a lot of fiddling around, as you can see. There's a lot of getting down underneath. They're getting that back section off the car, that back piece of trim where the lights are, was the best thing. Definitely get that off. It's easy to take off, it's only 4 bolts, and it'll save you a world of pain, because it's so easy to get to everything without that in. So here we are working on the intake at the same time, changing how the intake works, putting different sensor on it and different wiring. Just winding the clock back to when I picked the car up. This was the first day I picked it up, and it was in really good condition. It had a full rebuild. So over my 8 years of owning my dream car, it has definitely tested me, as you can see here, to the limit. And I've ordered so many parts for this car, it's unreal. And I'm virtually on my second set. So I could be one of the unluckiest DeLorean owners here, but it's not going to let it beat me. And they say you should never meet your hero, which is this car in my case, but it's got character, and it will not beat me. So here we are on day, I do not know what now, because we've lost track, and this is rebuild day of the complete car. So the heads are on, all torqued down, all the chains are back on, everything's good. So now it's my job to put all this back together. So just to add to the problems of DeLorean ownership, I've had a mouse here. So where the car is at the moment, it's actually on a farm. So somehow it's got into the garage, into the car, and it is destroyed a bag. I'm hoping that's all, because if it is my wiring, I'm in deep trouble, because it could have got up here somewhere and run into this back of here. Still haven't found it yet. Anyway, on with the story. So all these are the parts I have to put back on. So this morning's job has been to refit the complete exhaust system and the manifolds, which are right at the back here. Real pain to get to. And this is the fuel injection system. As it said in Doc Brown, it'll take me a month to rebuild. This was what you actually seen in the film when he blew, in Back to the Future 3, when he blew the manifold off. This is what actually was on the floor. So that is all the fuel injection system for the car. So that is going to go back on in a little while. But all of this is just, all this cabling is going to be done. All the inlet manifolds are going to go back on the top. Fair bit of work. So just a bit more video on the heads when they came back. Really pleased with how these came out. And just a little thought that I've got on DeLorean ownership. You can own these cars, and if you've got an unlimited amount of budget, you can just get a specialist to sort them out for you. If you haven't, like in my case, then it is getting the spanners out and getting down to the nuts and bolts, and not being scared of actually taking these things apart. I have actually learned a massive amount by taking this car apart and repairing it myself. I would love somebody else to do it for me, but the budget wouldn't allow that, and I think the car's got over 6,000 hours in it, so you need a big budget.
Your future hasn't been written yet. No one's has. Your future is whatever you make it. So make it a good one.